الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقون يا أولي الألباب.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Welcome to our 6th episode of Udhiya Q&A. Inshallah, today I'll be taking two important questions that many people they ask regarding Udhiya and Qurbani. The very first question that many people ask is that can I perform a sacrifice on behalf of a deceased family member, and will they receive the reward for it or not? Now, just like we find Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was performing the udhiyah, he was able to combine the niyas, and he said that this sacrifice is for me, it is for my my family, and for the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, based on this, if you have a share, or you have, let's just say, one share, one sacrifice that you are performing, and you want to combine the intentions, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The other question that many people ask is that what do you do in the case of a wasiyah? In that case also, you can perform a qurbani or an udhiyah on behalf of someone who has passed away, but you have to go back and look at the wasiyah, that what animal do they want, and not only that, is that wasiyah a one time, or do they expect you to do, or do they expect the executor that they perform an udhiyah on their behalf every single year? Once again, you have to go back to the wasiyah. Now, the question that many people do ask also is that what if I'm not combining the niyyah? Meaning that I have one share for myself and I have separate shares for my family members who have passed away. Is that permissible or not? The answer is yes, it is absolutely permissible, and they will receive the reward inshaAllah based on the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is a hadith narrated by Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He mentioned that a sahabi by the name of Sa'ad bin Ubadah radiyallahu ta'ala, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was on a journey, and he came back to Medina, and he found out that his mother had passed away. So he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that if I conduct a charity on her behalf, will it be accepted or not? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he answered in the affirmative. And this is a hadith mentioned in Bukhari. So we do understand that most certainly, inshaAllah, just like any other charity, when you do a qurbani on their behalf, they will receive the reward. At the same time, I do want our listeners and our viewers to understand that this is not necessarily a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to actually perform separate shares of qurbani or udhiyah on behalf of the deceased family members. It is permissible, but did the Prophet ﷺ ever perform a qurbani or udhiyah on behalf of, for example, of Khadija, or on behalf of his uncle Hamza, or people who have passed away from his family? No, we don't find that. So that is why when we do this qurbani or udhiyah, making sure that you understand and we understand that this is a nafli act. This is an optional act. It is of good charity, and inshallah they will receive the reward most definitely. Now, the next question, which is the more contentious issue, I will say, is the question that can you perform a qurbani or udhiyah on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And I know that within the subcontinent, this is a very much predominant practice. Within the Middle Eastern countries, it is not so much of a practice. And I will say that the answer to this question is that there are two schools of thought. Now, before I get into those both opinions, I want to first explain that when we talk about udhiyah and qurbani, why are we performing qurbani or udhiyah? We're doing it for two reasons. Number one is that we want to come closer to Allah. We want to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two is that we are doing it to revive the legacy of our forefather, Ibrahim alayhi salam. But the real reason is that we want to gain from the hasanat. If I'm giving something in charity, of course I want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward me for the charity. Now when we talk about even our deceased, doing a share on their behalf, why? So that they can get the reward for it. Now when we talk about doing a qurbani or udhiya on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no concept that I'm doing it so that he can benefit from this. The Prophet ﷺ does not need to benefit from the hasanat. We understand and we learn from the Quran and from the Sunnah that his sins have been forgiven. All his sins have been forgiven. So if a person chooses to do so, it is not because that the Prophet ﷺ needs it, but it is more out of gratitude and being, out of thankfulness and gratitude. And the reason I say this is because there is one school of thought, which is, Imam Ibn Abidin rahmatullahi alayhi, a very famous Hanafi scholar. He wrote a very well-known book that is, very well-known in the Hanafi school of thought, which is called Raddul Mukhtar. And in this book he writes, Imam Ibn Abidin, that once Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he was found and someone saw him performing some extra tawaf around the Kaaba. And when he was asked why you are doing this, he said that I'm doing this for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Ibn Abidin says that it is absolutely permissible and there is nothing wrong if you do a qurbani on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you're doing it not because the Prophet needs it, but because just out of gratitude and just to show your thankfulness to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and just out of love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Imam Ibn Abidin says, just like when we send our peace and blessings upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we want to benefit from that, but at the same time we're doing this. Why? Because when we understand how much the Prophet did for us, just as a token of gratitude and shukr, and just to show our love to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we send our peace and blessings upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, we understand, and Imam Ibn Abidin says that it is absolutely permissible. Also, we find that the school of thought that says that it is permissible, they also say that once Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was seen after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam performing two qurbanis or two udhiyas, two separate animals, and when he was asked, Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu responded by saying that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he requested me to do this, and therefore till the day I die, every year I shall perform a qurbani on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So based on this, the one school of thought says that it is absolutely permissible. The other school of thought, which is also a very valid school of thought, they say that no, it is not allowed because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never instructed anyone to do a qurbani on his behalf. We don't find the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum performing a qurbani on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we don't find any of the Sahaba after the death of the Prophet sallallahu that they were having a separate share for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there is no reward for this if you do it on behalf of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so therefore this is their opinion too. So there are both valid opinions. Once again, one opinion says that it is permissible, but once again, we have to understand that if we do this, it is not you're doing it because the Prophet ﷺ needs it. You're doing it just as, to show your love for the Prophet ﷺ. And then the other school of thought says that it is not allowed because we don't find it in the Sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ. Once again, both schools of thought, both of them are valid. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no matter whether we're doing qurbani here or udhiyah here or anywhere, or we're doing it on behalf of our family members, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help. If we're doing it on behalf of our family members, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this in their share, inshallah, on the Day of Judgment. And if we're doing it here, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us our qurbani. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
واذكروا الله في أيام معدودات فمن تعجل في يومين فلا إثم عليه ومن تأخر فلا إثم عليه لمن اتقى واتقوا الله واعلموا أنكم إليه تحشرون.